Hello, everyone. We'll get started here in a few minutes. Thank you for joining. I always feel like I need hold music on these things. I'll give Ray Webb props. He had a conference call yesterday and he had hold music in the background, so I'm not quite as prepared as Ray was, but we'll still get started here in a couple minutes. I've had a recommendation to start singing. That will probably not happen.
Anybody hear me now?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay. What was going on? I wasn't hearing anything until you addressed everybody. I wasn't able to join the audio. Good.
Well, I'm glad you were with us.
Thanks for doing this.
All right, it's a minute after. I'm going to try to only keep people for an hour, so we'll get started. I know there's still some people joining. I've got a little welcome here to start with. So, welcome. Thank you all for joining us today. Sadly, we are in our home offices, dining rooms, and like myself, in our basements. Instead of in Des Moines, having a good time all together in person, but I'm glad we are at least able to get together virtually today. As you know, our agenda for today is have quick 5-minute updates from each of our state directors, as well as an update on ITS Heartland's TISMO and MCOMP grant programs. But before that, a couple housekeeping things. I wanted to remind everyone of a couple items. The Best of ITS Awards deadline is still open. It's been extended through May. So please get on our website, the ITS Heartland website, and nominate a project. It is really quick. It takes less than 5 minutes to do so. And then, so please do that. We always like celebrating the ITS achievements around our area, and more often than not, we don't get very many nominations in there, even though we know there's a ton of great projects out there. And then the other thing is, as you know, we recently had elections for 2020-2021 Board of Directors. So I'm proud to present the 2020-2021 Board of Directors right there. A good list of them. Can I get a virtual round of applause? All right. This fantastic group of people, led by your president, Slade Engstrom, will take over after today's call. It's going to be a little unique situation this year, obviously, but the current board, led by myself, will continue to plan and run the Des Moines meeting this fall, but the new board will begin planning the 2021 meeting to be held in Overland Park next spring. They'll also take over the other board duties that are completed throughout the year. So as typical fashion, we'll have a proper musical introduction this fall in Des Moines. But again, congrats to the 2020 and 2021 Board of Directors. I'm gonna give you another round of applause. I know you guys will all do great, and thank you for volunteering and joining the board. So without further delay, we'll start our state updates. Tim of Iowa DOT will begin.
Thank you. Welcome virtually to Iowa. I guess we'll do more formal welcomes in November. Hopefully the weather will be this good at that time. Thank Kurt for putting this together. I think it's a great idea. I know these are fun for me to listen to, and it's nice to get an inventory of what we've got going on. So what was our traffic operations office has become a bureau. It's department-wide. All our offices were changed to bureaus for the name purposes. No real change with that, but as has been consistent, we're down 4 positions. We'll get to fill them all, but they're vacant right now, so that makes for a big workload right now. And one of those is Donna Matulak, who's our assistant office director. She's taken a similar position in the maintenance bureau. So we're kind of running short-staffed, which seems to be the norm for us. On the good side of that, Scott Marler was our former office director, is now the DOT director. So we've got a director at the department who knows TSMO and traffic operations, so that's in our advantage. And on the TSMO front, we've got our service layer plans, and we've 7 of those 8 are completed. Active travel demand management is our last one to wrap up this next year. Then we'll be going back and reviewing our strategic plan and program plans, and then rewriting the service layers, updating those. With work zones, this is our 7th summer during our statewide intelligent work zone program. We're continuing to work on, so we have a lane closure planning tool, which was developed to kind of give easier access to all of our field data to help plan lane closures for upcoming work zones. We're able to take that, working with Iowa State and RIT, and grab current data to be able to use that data that we're collecting day to day and seeing the drop in volumes this spring and summer to be able to open up our construction times that we allowed, hopefully get projects done more quickly, more daytime work, which can get done faster and more efficiently. So that's been a kind of a real success story that tool has been really valuable. And we're continuing to advance smart arrow boards as a way to better know when there's lane closures in the field and log our history of closures for later analysis too. We're continuing to push that front. The next slide, with our staffing, our current statewide traffic management center is managed by Bonnie Castillo from our bureau, but it's staffed externally. WSP just took that staffing over in December. For our CARS, our ATIS, ATMS softwares, our CARS OneWeb is in transition right now. It's a 3-phase transition, so you can use that link there to see what the new page is going to look like. And it's going to take a few steps to add all the full features into the new version and fully move over to the new 511 website. We're also in about a year-long transition of moving our ATMS software that the TMC uses to OpenTMS. And that should be in place by the end of 2020. Our sensor and camera activities, we've always used Wavetronic sensors for speeds and volumes on our roadways. We're going to be opening that up to Houston Radar SpeedLane Pro. So that's kind of a new step for us. We're also looking at some special use video analytics cameras for both wrong way detection, working with traffic and safety to identify locations that are high risk for that, and also bridge security. So those are kind of some new areas we're looking at for cameras. And then the next one for our contracts, I know this is usually a question, is we have a small staff, but we have good access to consultants. We had 10. Those are running out at the end of this fiscal year in a couple months. We just selected our 8 new contracts that'll be good for the next 3 years. And then as far as vendor contracts, the next bullet there, we had a busy year last year filling those for our software that I already mentioned. Our Highway Helper was new last year. Traffic Management Center staffing, I mentioned that. Our Intelligent Work Zone, we just reselected. And then the only one that's still coming up is our statewide ITS maintenance, which should be coming out this summer or fall. And those are not engineering, it's other contracted services. We have a 6-year maximum limit on those. And with that, I just look forward to seeing everybody in person in November in Des Moines, November 15th to 17th. Make sure you come up Sunday night so you're able to join in some fun the night before we start. So hope everybody's doing well.
All right, thanks, Tim. Appreciate the update. That was great. We'll move right along. If you have questions, please reach out to the state directors individually. We won't have time for questions today, but please reach out to them individually. Their email addresses and everything are on our website. Next is our Kansas ITS update with Sherry Hilliard.
Hi, can you hear me?
We can.
Okay,
Welcome.
good. I don't see a mute button on my screen. Are you just muting people or unmuting them as they speak?
Yes, I can. Yep, you're good.
Okay. I also can't share my webcam because I think I'm getting an error message that the maximum number of webcams have been reached.
Oh, okay. Interesting.
Yeah. All right. And how many people do we have on the call?
We have about 90 right now, 96.
Oh boy. Okay. All right. Well, I'll get started. Response to COVID-19 has been keeping us busy, as I'm sure is the case with other states. Most of our DOT office staff is working remotely. Construction projects have continued with limited staff in our buildings and reduced maintenance staff. We're currently phasing maintenance staff back into full staffing levels with emphasis on sanitation and ways to adhere to social distancing. We have been posting COVID messages on all statewide signs and on the Kansas side of KC Scout at the request of the governor's office and the Kansas Department of Emergency Management. This slide just shows the messages we're using. They just reiterate the same precautions and recommendations, such as checking fevers and social distancing, that are being provided by the CDC. We have alternated these messages, as well as posting information about the extension of our stay-at-home order in Kansas, which currently goes until May 3rd. The COVID situation has slowed down the contract award for KDOT's ATMS procurement, but I'm happy to announce that we did sign a contract earlier this week with Southwest Research Institute, and will be implementing their active ITS software by this fall. We're continuing to move ahead with scheduled ITS construction projects. You can probably go to the next slide. A camera retrofit project is starting this summer in Kansas City that will replace about 50 cameras. And we have a new construction letting in Wichita scheduled for June that will install new signs, cameras, an early warning queue detection system, and a truck rollover system. Although we've been trying to keep things on schedule as best we can, we have had some supply chain delays already that may affect construction start dates by a few weeks, and we'll just have to continue to be flexible to extend or suspend working days due to those supply issues that are out of our contractor's control. The maintenance side of things, we've continued to change out some of our older ADCO signs to SES America signs and perform planned maintenance of ITS devices. From an operations standpoint, KC Scout and Wichita have both implemented traffic management center operators and staff working remotely, even though they're deemed essential staff under the stay-at-home orders. In Wichita, we're co-located with the 911 center, and we agreed to work remotely to reduce risk for the 911 operators that have to be in the building. Trans System does that support contract. They anticipated the situation. They had laptops in place before we needed to make that move in mid-March, which we did really before the stay-at-home order started. KC Scout's taken similar precautions with about 80% of their staff working remotely. Overall, that transition, it was a quick one. It's gone pretty smoothly. We've had to work out a few phone and radio issues, but so far, I'm amazing how well it has worked. And then this slide talks about Kansas Highway Patrol. We've recently renewed their HOS contract for all of the MAV vehicles. If you're not familiar with the system, its features are summarized on the slide. It uses Waze to alert travelers about stopped MAV units. It's also integrated with the Scout software so that GPS locations of the MAV operators are available for better coordination. Scout has also started providing pothole updates through the Waze system to our maintenance crews in Kansas City. which is a new feature that's provided helpful information. At our Wichita TMC, that's the next slide, 24/7 operations and a central location for statewide sign control were implemented for the first time this last December. We've been slowly coordinating, adding services like support for road condition reporting, which has traditionally been done by our district staff. And we've increased sign messaging support with several districts this winter. This spring, we'll continue to roll that out so that coordination with all of our districts can be familiar with the support that we're offering, and we'll start to use that statewide center more. We've also been focusing on the next slide on rural incident management efforts. We're trying to push more TIM training and consistent training out statewide. As part of that, we've been doing some analysis of accident data, and we're going to be providing heat maps like the one shown on the slide so that they can focus on problem areas. Okay, next slide. For a more general KDOT perspective, the legislature recently approved a 10-year, $9.8 billion Eisenhower Legacy Transportation Program, and that should help speed economic recovery from the COVID situation and continue ITS projects into the future. So we're excited about that. There's no doubt going to be budget challenges, but that commitment will help move us forward. And that's all I've got.
All right, well, thanks, Sherry. I appreciate the update. And then next we have MoDOT with Alex Wassman.
Thank you, Kurt. I'm going to go ahead and start a stopwatch here so I make sure I stay at least near my 5 minutes. A lot of stuff going on. It's tough to fit it all in. So first off, I want to talk about something I mentioned last time, work with our TSMO plan implementation teams. We completed the planning stage last year, and this year the teams are working on developing and implementing a few focus items. We have 3 groups of about 10 people each with a team lead and a senior management team sponsor. It was important for us to have buy-in from around the state and at all levels. The traffic incident management team is led by Owen Hassan, our traffic incident manager, and sponsored by Chris Redline, the Northwest District Engineer. 2 of the tasks they're focusing on now are to update and adopt an open roads policy shared between MoDOT and Highway Patrol. And basically that just lays out roles and responsibilities to make sure that we balance opening the road quickly with the safety of everyone involved in incident response. And also they would like to establish TIM coordinators in each district and form regional TIM committees. Next up, the Advancing TSMO team is led by our KC Scout TMC manager and former ITS Heartland president, Randy Johnson. The sponsor is Nicole Hood, the state highway safety and traffic engineer. First task they're working on is to educate and equip the planning and design staff to consistently implement TSMO into the processes within each district. We've had some issues in the past, not necessarily intentional, but a lot of people are just not aware to all the options available to them. So we're trying to make all that information available. Next up, they would like to establish a TSMO committee within each district. And then finally, we have the work zone team led by field materials engineer Dan Ash, and it's sponsored by Dave Olvers, our state construction and materials engineer. One of the things they're working on now is a one-page handout for law enforcement and work zones. The point of this is to make sure that public and officer safety is maximized and the effectiveness of the location of the trooper when they're enforcing in work zones is the best location possible. Also, they're working on creating a TSMO work zone priority map based on congestion and crash rates. This will be kind of a handy guide that the districts can use when deciding, we have limited resources, where can we have the biggest impact utilizing smart work zones and things like that. Next up, predictive analytics on the I-270 design build project in the St. Louis region. The focus on this is on the I-270 work zones, but it will include all major MoDOT routes in St. Louis County, St. Louis City, and St. Charles. The goal of this is to leverage artificial intelligence along with a bunch of different data sources like in-vehicle data and probe data, cloud computing, and we're trying to get a more streamlined and efficient incident management process, more interagency collaboration, and then, like I said, the predictive insights to make sure that we are proactively managing instead of always reacting. Work on that is continuing right now. We're analyzing the different existing data sets and feeds, getting ready for a soft launch in late June. We have a Waze CCP statewide contract signed now. Previously, Kansas City and Springfield TMCs and their partners were already using Waze data. Now it'll be available for statewide use. One of the first implementations of that will be in that I-270 design build project. Next up, the TTS contract that I mentioned last time. We have time to green messaging available in Audis and soon to be other vehicles. That's currently up and working at hundreds of signals in the St. Louis and Kansas City regions. In Springfield right now, they're working with McCain to facilitate a signal data feed to TTS. And then once that happens, it'll be another 6 months or so before anything comes online. Moving on to Branson, we have an accelerated innovation deployment grant. There's 25 intersections being equipped with automated traffic signal performance measure enabling equipment. That's on 3 corridors, 13 of the signals are MoDOT's and 12 are Branson's. The installation was complete in February 2020. And right now they were gathering data to be used for timing modifications, but with traffic patterns going a little haywire due to COVID, it'll probably need to settle down before we could go again. Color DMS installations continue. The first project, retrofit 5 DMS sites with color messaging capabilities, was completed last year. The boards began displaying travel times using route shields in September. And there are 2 active color DMS installation projects. One is in St. Louis and one in Springfield. And lastly, the COVID-19 response. I just wanted to mention it real quick. Data generated by our ITS devices and probe data has been used all over the state to help respond to the pandemic. We've been giving data to the governor, to researchers at universities, and it's really kind of highlighted how useful the information that we can generate is. In Missouri, the volumes dropped off about 30 to 50%, but stabilized after 2 weeks. Now it's just kind of been slowly creeping up. Thanks for the time. I had a little over 6 minutes, but hey, that was close, like I said.
I'll give you a break on this one, Alex. Thank you. Thank you. Good update. And next, out of Nebraska, we have Matt Baker. And I can't hear you, Matt. Let me. All right, try now. Yes, now we can hear you. Go for it.
All right. So this past year, we spent a fair amount of time continuing to learn and recovering from our flooding last March. We actually did a large amount of after-action task force assembly for a lot of initiatives and lessons learned from that flooding event. We wanted to make sure that the things that we learned and procedures that we found lacking were augmented and improved and kind of integrated into our agency procedures for the years to come. And hopefully that never happens again, but we will be better prepared this time and improve upon an already great response from a year ago. A couple of those after actions included creating a lot of GIS layers to help predict based on storm forecasts what kind of flooding and where we might have some flooding on some of our highway systems and local systems, being aware of our asset inventory, make sure traffic control is in tip-top shape, and where is that traffic control inventory located. We also took the opportunity to improve our communication and collaboration with some of our neighboring states. We have set up a pre-incident command, mostly for weather incidents with Wyoming, Colorado, Kansas, and Nebraska. We now initiate phone calls in advance of especially winter storms so that we may collaborate on our efforts, especially with closures of the I-80 corridor. We are happy to announce that we have awarded our statewide traffic incident management contract. Over the next 5 years, we intend to triple our coordinating groups along the interstate from 2 to 6 groups. We also intend to have a TIM exercise every year, try to rotate it around the 6 groups statewide. And we also want to hold our statewide coalition after a successful coalition meeting in Lincoln last year. We have begun work on our TSMO strategic plan, and it is perfect timing because it's collaborating with the NDOT Long Range Transportation Plan. I'd also like to announce our new ITS engineer, Tim Foss. Tim comes from the Signal Group here at NDOT, so he has a fair amount of knowledge of electronics and also project delivery. The last couple of things, we have a motorist assist contract that we are going to get advertised here within the next month or so, putting the final details on that contract language. And we're also announcing that sometime by the summer, we will be renewing our ITS on-call contracts as well for the next 5 years. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Matt. Appreciate it. There was a question if Missouri, Nebraska, or now Nebraska have any additional slides. No, they do not, but please reach out to them if you have additional questions or details. So with that, Oklahoma, Marty Ferris, all yours.
Well, I'll kind of start with where we started off last year, which was a lot of change in leadership happening at ODOT. The new governor came in last January, and so then there was a lot of turnover at the head of ODOT. Of our 7 senior staff executive level positions, by the end of last summer, 5 of them were either new people or new people in their new position. So with a lot of change, brings about, a bunch of change in direction to a lot of different things. One of the first things that you can see, I have our old logo up here, what we lovingly call the Death Star logo, but on the slide below, the Kurt prepared, he has our new logo. And in that logo, it doesn't say Department of Transportation, it just says Oklahoma Transportation. And a big part of that is a push from the governor's office to have the Department of Transportation and our Turnpike Authority work together much more, which has been really realized in our ITS group in helping them develop their ITS plans. So we've been working closely with them in how to expand their DMS capabilities, their CCTV cameras up and down the turnpikes. We've really helped them kind of come together with laying out a plan, and then they have the budget that we don't to actually execute the plan that we've been putting together for them. So it's nice to see that some of that's actually getting kind of a fast pass to being built here soon. But also kind of to go along with that, you've got the good of working together with OTA, but you've got some bad. At the meeting last year, I was excited to announce that we had started our Safety Service Patrol program, GODOT. The governor decided to can that shortly after that meeting, so we no longer have a service patrol in our state. We've continued moving forward with a bunch of other things. Right after last year's meeting, kind of what many of you struggled with, there was a lot of flooding because it just rained the whole month of May. But we got a lot of good recognition for our ability to update our road conditions map, to keep it up to date, minute by minute as we close down a point on a roadway. We had that reflected on our map and pushed out to the people of Oklahoma, where those road closures were happening, because they were changing, minute by minute. The water level would raise in one area, we'd have to close the road for a little bit, and then a few hours later, maybe good, or maybe it was weeks. We actually had some closures because of washouts that have lasted up until this spring, from last spring. But we kept hearing and kept getting the good feedback that everybody was turning to that map to really see what was going on and where they could and couldn't go. So that was a good, bit to show what we could really do to help our state out in that moment of need. Other than that, our RWIS project that we had just broken ground on last meeting, up and down I-35, we've got stations now every 15 to 20 miles. The infrastructure is fully complete on that, and we're just kind of testing all the software bugs out. We've continued to expand our snowplow systems. We're up to almost half of the snowplows in our state that have our camera systems with tracking, so we know where our snowplows are, what they're laying down, and then we can push the live images that they're pushing to us, at least taken every 10 minutes, out to the public as well for winter storm events for decision making. We have continued to connect our DMSs to backup generators, so we just kind of have some redundancies and availability there, as well as connecting them into our fiber network. We are working on some dynamic messaging on our DMSs. It's fed from our probe data, so we're working on if slowdowns are occurring ahead of our dynamic messages, that we kind of immediately get messages on the boards that are pre-programmed depending upon the level of traffic slowdown and things of that sort. We do right now have humans signing off on it, and we've only tested it on our portable message boards, but we're getting some good feedback, and we hope to push that to some of our permanent displays here in the next year. As some of the others mentioned, we have started our WAVE partnership through their Connected Citizens program. We've just in the infancy of that, but we're really excited to be sharing data with them. We held a TISMO program planning workshop last October. We've had a small group within ODOT that has kept meeting since then with the intent of trying to push for getting an actual TISMO planning document put together. It's kind of been put on hold during this COVID time, but we hope to get back into that once we're all kind of back in the office. And then we just renewed our ITS consultant design contracts. We just awarded those here in the last month, and we actually did the interviews during this COVID period over the internet as well. So that was a new experience doing interviews through an interface much like this. And then we also have our speed data RFP for what we're using for our probe data is out right now, and we just finished our consultant or our question and answer period on that, and then the final document should be due here in the next week. I think that's really about it for us.
All right, great, thank you. Yeah, I like the new logo. I found it as I was looking around, so. All right, well, those are our 5 state updates. Thanks again to our state directors. Next, we have Mike Jackson with Olson. He'll be giving an update on the MCOMP project.
Thanks, Kurt. Go ahead and go to the next slide. This project, as you all know, has been around for quite a while. We started back in 2013 when we made the application. We developed the agreement in 2014. Olson came under contract late in 2015 to do the administration. We developed the preliminary engineering things, the concept of operations, requirements documents, and et cetera. And the RFP was put out late in 2017. In December of that year, we signed a contract with Italic to develop the integrated data warehouse. And through the course of 2018, they did all the preliminary engineering. They did the programming for the data warehouse and launched it late in 2018 and went into the operations and maintenance phase and the research phase. And so that phase lasts 2 years. They run concurrently and lasts for 2 years. And so the contract completion will come up here at the end of 2020. Next slide, please. So I borrowed a presentation from the news just to kind of go in and talk about some of the things with the data warehouse, just as a very quick overview. So just as a reminder of what's involved in it, next slide. So once you get into it and get signed up, you can download information, you can subscribe to have regular feeds come, be fed to you, or you can, and as part of the research and some of the other things that Italic did, there's some data analytics programs that provide fairly attractive graphics that you can use for analysis. Next slide. And so along with that came some other reports and infographics, and that we'll go into that a little bit more now. The first one is just a general congestion overview for all the Heartland states. You can break this down state by state and look at just your state or one of the other Heartland states, or you can look at the ITS Heartland region as a whole. Next slide. One of the other things they did is do an evaluation of the system health, so you can look at how well that the system is working in each of the areas, how good the data is, and how reliable. And so we can see also as far as how the accidents are occurring, how well our transportation system is operating as well. Next slide. And then as part of the research phase, Italic developed some other features at the request of the ITS Heartland board. More recently, with the COVID-19 pandemic impacts, that they did kind of a region-wide and state-by-state review of the impacts of traffic and what we're seeing speed-wise. And while the speed graph doesn't show, because the scale is compressed, doesn't show a lot of difference, there is a fair amount of change in speeds, and you can see where, and we've all seen the reports about folks driving a lot faster, and that certainly is documented here. Next slide. And then some of the other research things that were done, go ahead, Kurt. And this was at the direction of the ITS Heartland board, is in the research is to focus on incident duration and the time for clearance, both in modeling that, and then also being able to develop some predictive analytics for that. And so the next couple of slides kind of show some of the things that they did in the methodology, where they would look at heat maps of the incidents. Go ahead to the next one. And then start modeling what it would take for the time to clear incidents. In the next slide. And then with that, kind of charting out how some of those worked out. And I'll be real honest, I'm not sure what this slide shows. Next slide. So, and then they were looking at both the number of incidents and the average duration for each type of incident, and trying to develop those predictive analytics. And go ahead to the next. And so you see some of the statistics that they were developing that correlates with the types of incidents and what they were seeing in the delays. Go ahead to the next.
That is the last slide I have for you.
Oh, okay. There was one other one I thought I had, but maybe I didn't get it on there. Anyhow, the last one that I had that I wanted to touch base on, there's a couple of issues or questions for ITS Heartland that the board and the organization will need to address. One, this data warehouse is actually, I was pretty impressed with what Italic developed. However, for some of the data that we thought would one is what is the use of it? Is it valuable to the Heartland states? How much have you all been able to use it? And is this worth carrying on? The second issue is, at the moment, most of the analytics are developed using the NPM RDS data. And while that is a fairly good constant source of data, it's not real time, and it's not extremely granular. And so the more that the states can come up with real-time data, it really opens the door to expand the potential uses and benefits that are received from it. And then probably the third issue that I think that will need to be addressed, in December of 2020, Italic's contract expires. And so there needs to be some provisions if this is to continue on to either have someone step up to maintain the system, to have a TALC maintain it, or maybe not to carry it on further. So that'll be questions for the ITS Heartland board to address going forward.
All right, thanks, Mike. Appreciate the update. I know a lot of detailed information and analysis going on with that project, so thank you.
You bet.
All right, and our next update is from Matt Voles. He'll be talking about the TISMO University.
Okay, thanks, Kurt. Did Tom get on? Tom Hine?
I saw his name in the list.
Okay. So this is kind of a preview of the presentation we were going to give for ITS Heartland this week, but the summary of the project right now as it stands, you got the slides there, Kurt?
Someone took control over for me. Hold on.
Well, while we're waiting, just kind of a summary of the project. For those of you that may not be familiar, Heartland was awarded a grant back in 2016, and we initiated a contract to do TISMO education throughout the Heartland region. So starting in 2017, we started a series of webinars across the Heartland region. And we did 8 webinars in total, plus we did 2 live training sessions as well between 2017 and 2018. And a lot of folks on the call probably attended one of those webinars or those live training sessions. The in-person training sessions, we did one in Omaha in 2017, another one at the ITS Heartland annual meeting in April of 2018. We've also done, as part of phase 2 of these train the trainer sessions. Both of them were in Kansas City, one in September of 2018 and again in September of 2019. Next slide. So the results from phase 1, which was the webinar plus 2 live training sessions, we have actually hit almost 550 people with our training. The graphs or the pie charts on the right-hand side, you can see we've got a good mix of folks from the public sector and private sector, which is kind of the whole point of doing this training. The FHWA gave us this grant so we could come up with some better ways of doing TISMO training and get a good mix of public sector and private sector. To date, they'd only really hit on the public sector folks and hadn't really hit on the consulting side of things. So we actually accomplished that mission, and about a third of our trainees were actually from the private sector. In total, we did about 44 hours of live training. We produced a whole ton of PowerPoints, reports, lots of graphics. We did over 15 presentations at national meetings about ITS Heartland TISMO University between myself, Tom Hine, Kurt Rotering, and Randy Johnson, and a couple others. And then we've also archived all this material, webinars, and all the live training is all archived on the ITS Heartland website. Next slide, Kurt. And you can go there and you can access it, and you can even download PowerPoint presentations from that website, as well as the PDH certificates if you need PDH hours for your licensing. That's a shot of the ITS Heartland TISMO page on the website. Here's an infographic that we developed as part of the project that Tom and myself have actually used at some conferences in poster sessions. It comes out to be about a 6-foot by 4-foot poster that's been displayed and been very well received. Next slide. And then we have gotten a lot of recognition for the program. The project was awarded the TISMO National Award for improving agency's TISMO capability from the National Operations Center of Excellence. That was at TRB in 2019. We also received an ITE in 2019, the Education Council's Innovation in Education Best Project Award. And then we also received the ITE TISMO Council Best Project organizational award. So 3 great awards in 2019. So it's gotten a lot of good recognition and been very well received. Tom, you have anything to add to that?
I think you covered many of my points. It was a $200,000 grant. Initially, a $100,000, as Matt pointed out, and then they liked what we were doing. We enhanced our scope and picked up another $100,000 from FHWA to complete this project. And HDR did a great job. They have completed their project in February. So their contract was $183,000 and 51 cents. Thanks, Matt. So we have, and then we had some other expenses that came through KDOT as the lead state on this. So right now we have about $3,000 left in this project, which is set to be spent in the next 6 to 8 months, and that will complete this project.
All right, great. Thanks, Matt and Tom. Now, Matt, I think you had an update as well for ITS World Congress.
Yeah, so I am the vice chair of the State Chapters Council for ITS America, and as such, I sit on the planning committee for the ITS World Congress 2020, which is going to be in Los Angeles this fall, October 4th to 8th of 2020. So we had our planning committee meeting last week. I wanted to give the ITS Heartland group a little bit of an update there. There's been some statements made by the mayor of Los Angeles stating that no big events will take place in Los Angeles at least until 2021. Australia has restricted travel for their residents, and they put no deadline on that or when that might be lifted. So question has come up, are we still going to have ITS World Congress 2020? And it's, for now, it is still on track. There was talk of, could we push this back the way ITS Heartland did? And really for a conference of this size, that's kind of impractical. So that's not going to happen. There was also discussion about whether or not they could move it forward a year and then have the next conference, which is in Hamburg, and the next one, which is in China, also pushed back a year, kind of the way the NFL draft said they were going to do with Las Vegas. And again, that's probably a little bit impractical just because those folks have already signed a lot of contracts. So I guess the short of it is stay tuned. Things are going to change potentially. We're still on track, still planning to have it right now. It might be scaled back, but we're still looking for a lot of support from our state chapters, and really appreciate it if folks could still continue to plan on attending that conference. And I will give kudos to ITS Heartland because you got out of the gate pretty early and got ITS Heartland pushed back to November and found the hotel space. A lot of our state chapters across the country have had to cancel their meetings. This fall is looking to be a very busy time with some conferences stacking up on top of each other. Sometimes there are 2 or 3 state chapter meetings on the same days and the same weeks. And a lot of hotel space and conference space is getting booked up. So good job, ITS Heartland, for getting in early and getting that meeting set up and scheduled.
All right, thanks, Matt, and good segue. And thank you to the state directors and Mike for the updates. Even though, as we heard from Matt, there's some uncertainty with the World Congress, ITS Heartland is scheduled for November 15th through 17th in Des Moines. As you can see on the screen, it will be at the same hotel and convention center that it was originally planned at. This is a Sunday through Tuesday, which is a little different, so our agenda changed a little bit, adjusted a little things. So please visit our website to see the full new agenda. We'll start the conference Sunday evening with the welcome reception, and then the main conference with the opening ceremony will start Monday morning. The typical Monday morning Sharp 2 TIM training will occur Tuesday afternoon after the closing ceremony, and also this year we'll have the Mobility on Demand Forum will also be Tuesday afternoon. So with that, thank you everyone for joining us. Thanks to everyone for providing their updates. It's been great to see your guys' faces and to see all the names of all the attendees on the attendee list as I was scrolling through. This meeting has been recorded and is being recorded, so it will be posted to the website as well as the slides. A couple of the states that didn't have slides per se have said they will share their outlines and notes for you if you don't want to listen through this, the webinar again. So otherwise, as we go through this uncertain time, please reach out to Slade or myself if you have any questions moving forward. Otherwise, we will see you in November. Thank you and have a good afternoon.
All right, thank you.